In today's story, OP has a very strange dilemma that is forcing him to go through a horror story and needs help figuring things out. Let's throw a drumstick on the fire. So my group likes to play at a bar. Long story short, my first game was played here for the bar's D&D nights. After a few sessions, one of the DMs noticed that I might be a good fit for their campaign. Most of the guys in this new group I consider to be fairly close friends nowadays. The only gripe I have with them is that even though we play for 3 hours, it feels as though we get through 45 minutes of actual progress. We are playing through a module, and in 2 years since they started, they only got to level 6. I'm also playing a character that I don't have much feeling for, but it's a meh point. I really wanted to play a character that I've been cooking for over a year now in a homebrew campaign where my backstory hooks actually matter. But I digress. So everything ends up going online, and I found myself DMing more and more often doing one-shots, since as a player, I can't seem to focus during online games. Well, bars are now opening back up, and with it, D&D night. The bar kind of voluntold our group to DM, and so I started prepping my own written one-shots. First group I get tonight consisted of one decent human being, and the rest seem to congregate directly from other horror stories. We have a barbarian who had main character syndrome and a craving to roll every check regardless if it was directed towards him or not, nor if it was even asked for. We have a rogue whose only intro for his character was, "He's a rogue who gets his information by seducing every babe he sees." This was followed immediately by an "oh yeah" from the barbarian. We have a fighter who describes himself as a pale orc with bright red hair who does not eat food, only dead humans. And then proceeded to show me an anime character that I have never heard of. And we have a ranger that is hyper-focused on a single thing and wanted to roll as many times as he possibly could on said thing. We get to the end of the introductions, and I've already swapped what one-shot I was planning on running, as the session I prepped was more heavy role-playing and I was not willing to deal with that, so I opt for one with more combat and exploration instead. Well, I tried. I swapped out the goddess for a demigod male and switched female human inn staff to imps with a bored bartender lich. The orc still wanted to eat him even though he was described as nothing but bones. He still tried catching an imp instead. The quest involved finding a child for a crying mother. I didn't even get out "you hear the sobs of a crying woman" before I saw the gleam in his eyes. I'm trying to get the main objective out, and I'm constantly interrupted with, "What does her hair look like?" Frazzled as though she's going through a panic attack. "Is she married?" Your perception check failed as her hands are covered by her hair and soaked handkerchief from her tears. "What is she wearing?" Simple garments, as she probably isn't expecting to be a functional adult at the moment. "What do her shoes look like?" I get them out the door, and the first thing the ranger asks is, "Are there any tracks?" Okay, good. Progress. Yes, you find some. Barbarian interjects. "Do I see them?" Ranger, do you point 17? Do I see them? Do you point the tracks out to them, Ranger? He does. Then the ranger follows up with, "Can I roll to see the size of the print? Can I roll to see the direction? Can I roll to see if the foliage is damaged in that direction?" I informed him that one roll is plenty and I will describe as needed, but the next stop, the same thing happens again. And again. I'm getting flustered at this point, and I just want the adventure to be done. We get to the encounter, and they find the girl is caged off with a cult, having already used 2 other commoners to partly summon a bone devil through the portal. The cage is off to the side, and the runes are being written for the next session. I had planned on heist stealth to nab her, perhaps a distraction, or a charge in for a blaze of glory fight. What I got instead was chilling. How old does she look? You'd imagine teenager? Older or younger teen? Younger? They're just using her blood for the ritual. All of it, yes. Does she look plump or more lean? At this point, I have my head in my hands, rubbing my eyes when I hear 19! I yell out to the cultists to save me a drumstick. I call dibs on an arm. I lost my cool. I loudly announced that the adventure was over about 45 minutes early, and we got a few curious glances from the other patrons. Remember, this is still happening in a public bar. I don't remember what else I told them because I was seeing red. I stuffed whatever I could quickly into my bag haphazardly and carried the rest out. While I can't kick these players as they are paying customers to the bar, I can, and I did, leave. Now, I like my friends, but I dislike how this bar event has made it so that we can only play every other week now. The bar owner doesn't care because they are paying customers. I can't only show up for my friends' games as it's equal load among us to DM. But I can't sit at a table with those people again. I can't just show up with a one-shot prepared and have one of those players directed towards me and I turn away suddenly every week. I found a new group completely, but even though I'm finally playing my character that I've always wanted to play, and finally playing in a homebrew campaign, the new group isn't the kind of people I would want to introduce to my wife. My wife loves my old friends from the bar, and I love hanging out with them too. I feel at a loss, and I don't know what to do. I've already messaged the friends and let them know what is up, but I feel guilty and justified at the same time. I don't want to stick my friends with those players either. Some clarifications. No, the bar is not paying us to play. My group, for some reason, prefers playing at said bar. I do not understand it as it is noisy and we constantly get interrupted by staff and other patrons. My friends are also running games as DM. They all seem to have lucked out on their tables and are enjoying themselves. I seem to have pulled the bad batches of apples, so to speak. I've hosted games at my place in the past, but after 2 or 3 games, someone will pipe up that they want to go back to the bar the following week. Lastly, the players show up and are seated at the tables with us, so we really don't have much say in of which DM gets to get what player, unless the player specifically requests a table. Hopefully that clears up everything. So this is a very weird situation. It looks like OP is being forced to DM at a bar every other week to play D&D with a group that he really likes. Off the bat, I do not like how the bar operates. Forcing people to DM for free because you let them play D&D there is wrong, especially if the bar is making money off of you and you aren't. I would negotiate for much better terms, but this brings me to the second problem, the group. You can't negotiate if the group doesn't care. I think you have to ultimately weigh the pros and cons. You either are forced to DM possibly future horror stories in order to play a game with a group you like in a place you don't, or try some different groups. I would find another group, but I understand wanting to do whatever you can to keep something going when you probably should move on. What do you all think about this situation overall? What do you think OP should do? In this next story, OP has a bone to pick with the DM, and rightfully so. Let's throw a cat onto the fire. I've been off and on lurking in a D&D Discord server for a while, and a few weeks ago I came across a one-shot I was interested in. The DM posted about it in the Looking for Group channel, where he had said he had been DMing since AD&D and had been working on this story since late 2005. I had only played with one DM who had been playing for a long time, and even he only started around 3rd edition. So I shot the DM a message. He asked me some relatively simple questions: age, gender, experience, and made a big deal about how important it was that I'd be comfortable with role-playing, as this one-shot would have almost no combat. The party ended up consisting of me, a skeleton divine soul sorcerer. I've been playing and DMing for about a decade. Autumn, a tabaxi forge domain cleric, relatively new and only 3 sessions worth of experience. Spike, the human soul knife rogue, been playing for a little longer than me. And Deathclock the mighty, half-orc totem warrior barbarian, who has been playing since 3.5e. We started in a tavern, where there was a quest board. Autumn and I were the only ones interested in it. Deathclock was trying to drink people under the table, and Spike was watching us from a dark corner. Autumn was put off by me in character because I was undead, but I quickly reassured her that I was brought here by divine intervention. She believed me, but was still suspicious. This is where Spike introduced himself, coming up behind us and saying that he didn't believe in any gods, and I must be either lying or an idiot if I think divine intervention was real. Autumn took offense to this, telling him that there have to be gods if she has divine magic. He just laughed at her, and she tried to ignore him. We further looked at the quest board, and only found one single quest. We were to go seek out a race of creatures suspected to be extinct. The prize money was like 500,000 gold. Deathclock misheard and believed we were supposed to find and kill them, and Spike was interested in anything that had gold in it. Autumn tried to re-explain the job, but neither of them was having it, and my skeleton boy couldn't care less. Off we went. I tried talking to some people about the race, but everyone was pretty unhelpful. Most NPCs either brushing us off or threatening to call the guard if I continued harassing them. Spike wanted to burn down the tavern we were in because people in there saw him, but he failed a strength save against Deathclock and was carried off. He didn't fight it, but was sad he didn't get to set something on fire. Autumn tried to roll investigation, but couldn't find anything. We thought we had reached a dead end within this town, but the DM was getting more and more impatient. Eventually, he railroaded us to some shack on the outskirts of the village. There we found the town elder. We asked him about the race, and he told us not to seek them out. He rolled persuasion against us. Autumn and Deathclock failed, but me and Spike were not perturbed by this strange man. Spike rolled intimidation to threaten him, and got magically thrown through one of the walls of the shack. I stepped up to the plate and told the elder that all we wanted was some info. DM had me roll deception. I rolled a 16 and he told me that it pretty much auto-failed and he kicked us all out, telling the party that they were mad at me for messing things up. Spike was too busy being angry at the elder for throwing him through a wall, and Deathclock and Autumn had already realized out of character that we weren't going to get anything out of the old man. They roleplayed being mad a little, but didn't care enough to keep the act up. After, Autumn wanted to roll investigation again, but the DM told her no, telling her, "You already rolled investigation to find their tracks, and you failed. You can't do it again." Deathclock fought the DM over it, questioning his ruling, but the DM started acting like a child, and Spike had to cut in. He sided with Deathclock, but didn't think fighting would do any good to move things forward. Deathclock conceded. After walking through the woods for a while, we came across a clearing, which the DM was very excited about. Catboys. Many catboys, rubbing up against each other, and was explained further to us in great detail, as if the DM had written everything down and was reciting it to us. After the description was finished, Spike turned around and walked back into the forest, leaving the Discord server. Deathclock raged and ran towards them with his weapon, but was struck by lightning and died instantly. The DM started yelling at him for trying to ruin the scene, but Deathclock yelled back, both angry that his character was dead for no good reason, and because the DM decided to drag some random players into his fantasy. Then, I think he was either kicked or just left of his own free will. Autumn and I had been completely silent during this exchange, and the scene as a whole. After some silence, she left the server without saying anything. I followed quickly after. Some time later, I received a message from the DM. Based on what's said in it, it was likely sent to all of the players. "First of all, how dare you? I spend years of my life working on the one-shot, and you were all awful players, and I will be letting people in that server know how much you derail, ruin, and destroy campaigns. You should never be welcome to anyone's table ever again. What's worse is how little experience you all have compared to me. Questioning me. Really? You know nothing about real D&D. I have been DMing since AD&D, and I bet most of you have only ever played 5e. The mods will know about this, and you all will be banned. I hope you're happy." DM, if you're reading this, I'm not mad at you for my sake. I don't care about the catboy activities. I have experienced not safe for work D&D sessions. I'm mad at you because Autumn is a minor. I don't know if you just didn't understand that, or if there's a worse reason why you still let her play. Do whatever you want with adults who know what they're getting themselves into, but don't you dare drag minors into this. That is just such a random ending that I don't know really how to unpack it fully. DM acts like a child, and then reads some sort of fan fiction of his that took over a decade to write for a one-shot. It's very strange, and I don't understand why the DM couldn't be more upfront about it. And the minor thing makes this whole thing worse, because he knew their ages, and she was playing a female catfolk being. What do you think about this, DM? And what do you think about this situation overall?